Eliza stood by the window, staring out at the bleak landscape that seemed to mirror her heart. The chill of the early morning seeped through the cracks in their old cabin, but it was not just the cold that made her shiver. Since her husband had passed away, the world outside felt foreign and unwelcoming. His family, once so close, had turned their backs on her. They cut every tie, leaving her and her boys to fend for themselves amidst whispers of judgment and disdain. Their rejection left an ache that settled deep within her chest. As she watched the sun slowly rise, painting the sky in soft shades of orange and pink, Eliza felt the weight of her loneliness pressing down on her. The mornings were the hardest, the quiet moments when she could hear the boys' laughter ringing in her ears, reminding her of happier times. Now, all she could do was gather her boys together and make breakfast from what little food they had left. There was hardly enough to fill their hungry bellies, and every meal felt like a reminder of the struggle they were in. Despite the hardships, Eliza tried to keep a smile on her face for her children. She wanted to show them that life could still hold joy even when it felt like everything was falling apart. They played games together, told stories by the fireplace, and did their best to keep each other's spirits up. But deep down, Eliza's heart ached for support, for someone to let them know they were not alone. Just then, the sound of hooves echoed in the distance. Eliza paused, squinting into the morning light as she spotted a figure approaching on horseback. It was Silas, the ranch hand from the neighboring farm. Known for his gentle demeanor and kind heart, he had stopped by before to help with chores or share a laugh over coffee. Perhaps today he would bring some much-needed help. As Silas dismounted, his face lit up with warmth. He offered a friendly smile that radiated comfort amidst her despair. "Good morning, Eliza," he called out cheerfully. "I thought I'd come by and see how you all were doing." Eliza felt a flicker of hope ignite within her. "We're managing," she replied softly. "Just trying to make do." Silas stepped closer, reaching into his saddlebag. "I brought some beans and fresh spring water. It's not much, but I thought it might help." His kindness was like a balm on her wounded spirit. As he shared his meager meal, Eliza realized that this simple act of sharing could grow into something more profound, a connection that might help heal their wounds. The heart of a lonely widow met the generosity of a broke ranch hand on that crisp morning, setting the stage for unexpected possibilities that lay ahead. In the days that followed Silas's visit, Eliza felt a small spark of hope flickering within her. She awoke each morning with a renewed sense of purpose, determined to keep her boys happy despite their dire circumstances. The laughter of her children became her guiding light, reminding her that joy could still be found even in the shadows of despair. Eliza worked hard to create moments of happiness for her boys, Ben and Tommy. They would gather around the table, sharing stories and dreams that stretched beyond their small cabin. She reminded herself that while their meals were meager, their spirits did not have to be. With each breakfast, she made sure to present the food as if it were a feast, decorating their plates with bright berries or wildflowers she found outside. "Look how colorful our breakfast is today," she'd say, grinning as they dug in with excitement. Evenings were spent around the fireplace as Eliza spun tales of brave knights and far-off lands. Her voice would come alive with each character, transforming their chilly home into a world bursting with adventure. The boys listened wide-eyed, their imaginations soaring beyond the limits of their reality. In those moments, Eliza could almost forget about the heavy weight on her heart. But reality was never far away. After telling stories or playing games, she would sneak outside to sit on the porch for a moment of quiet reflection. The wind rustled through the trees, and she felt the emptiness left by her husband wash over her again like a wave. She missed him deeply, his laughter, his guidance, they were irreplaceable. Each time she looked at Ben and Tommy's faces, she remembered how he would have taken such joy in being part of their lives. Eliza often wondered if things could ever return to normal, or if they had entered a new chapter defined by loss. She longed for companionship and support, but felt hesitant to reach out for help after her husband's family had cut ties so cruelly. Still, Silas remained in her thoughts. His kindness brought warmth to her heart during the cold nights. As weeks went by, Eliza noticed that Silas had become more than just a fleeting visitor. He started coming around more often, offering help on chores or simply sharing a cup of coffee while exchanging stories about life on the ranch. The boys adored him, they looked up to his gentle ways and admired his knowledge about animals and nature. Though he had little to offer in terms of wealth, Silas brought something far more valuable, a sense of belonging and community that Eliza had feared she would never find again. As they sat together one evening under the stars with laughter ringing through the air, Eliza felt something shift within her, a realization that perhaps life could still hold beauty even amidst heartache. As the sun rose higher each morning, Silas continued to be drawn to Eliza's cabin. He had seen the sorrow in her eyes and felt the burden she carried for her boys. Though his pockets were often empty, Silas believed that everyone deserved kindness and support, especially someone as brave as Eliza. Silas appreciated how hard Eliza worked to create a semblance of normalcy for her children. He could hear their laughter floating on the wind, and it tugged at his heartstrings. Despite struggling himself with a few coins to rub together, he couldn't turn a blind eye to their plight. It felt right to lend a helping hand whenever he could. One day, after finishing his morning chores, Silas grabbed an old sack and filled it with fresh produce from the ranch, root vegetables and a little bit of grain. He rode over to Eliza's cabin with determined purpose, hoping to see their smiles light up once again. As he arrived, the boys were outside playing in the dirt, their cheeks flushed with laughter. "Hey there, boys," Silas called out, dismounting his horse. Their faces lit up with excitement as they recognized him. "I brought you something special today." Eliza stepped out of the cabin, wiping her hands on her apron, and smiled gratefully. Even though she felt a pang of guilt about accepting charity, she recognized the good nature of Silas's gestures. She could see how happy her boys were to have him around. "How are you all doing?" he asked warmly as he handed Eliza the sack. "I thought this might help liven up your meals." Eliza accepted it with a grateful nod. "Thank you so much, Silas." "You're too kind," she replied softly. She couldn't help but feel a little less alone when he was near. His generosity was like a comforting blanket around her heart. Silas didn't just provide food, he offered stories and lessons about life on the ranch that captivated Ben and Tommy. They hung on to his words like sponges, eager for knowledge about horses and farming techniques. As the days turned into weeks, Silas became a frequent visitor at their home. Each time he came by, he would carry something, a small trinket he found while working or some fruit from the trees. He never aimed to impress but wanted them to know they were valued and loved. Silas saw the strength in Eliza that she perhaps couldn't see in herself. She was fighting to keep hope alive amid heavy hardships. It motivated him further to be there for her and her boys. Little by little, he felt that their lives intertwined in ways neither of them had originally anticipated. The bonds being formed were more than just acts of kindness. They were beginning to stitch together a tapestry of friendship and support that could possibly heal their wounds deep within their hearts. The first light of dawn painted the horizon in soft pastel shades as Silas mounted his horse with a sense of purpose. He had awoken early, the thought of Eliza and her boys motivating him to move. Today, he wanted to offer them something special, not just food but his companionship and understanding. He felt their loneliness like a weight on his heart, and he was determined to lighten their burden in any way he could. As he rode through the crisp morning air, the sound of hooves echoed softly against the earth, mingling with the gentle chirping of birds waking for the day. Silas felt invigorated by the quiet beauty surrounding him, a welcome contrast to the struggles faced by the widow and her children. When he reached Eliza's cabin, he dismounted and quietly approached the door. Eliza was already awake, bustling about inside, trying to create a normal morning for her boys despite the unease that clawed at her heart. She started when she heard a knock at the door, surprised yet relieved to see Silas standing there with a warm smile on his face. In his hands, he carried a small sack filled with produce from the ranch. "Good morning, Eliza," he greeted cheerfully, his bright eyes radiating kindness. "I thought you might like this. Fresh carrots and some herbs to add flavor to your meals." Her heart swelled with gratitude as Eliza took the sack from him. "Thank you, Silas. This is wonderful," she said, her voice carrying the weight of her emotions. For a moment, it felt as if a piece of her burden had been lifted. The boys heard their mother and bolted toward the door, excitement evident on their faces. "Silas, what did you bring us today?" shouted Ben, eyes wide with eagerness. "Some crunchy carrots that'll make your breakfast more interesting," Silas replied with a grin. The dynamic between them warmed Eliza's heart. She loved seeing how engaged Silas was with her children. As they gathered around the table for breakfast, Silas joined them, eager to share stories about life on the ranch and life lessons learned along the way. His laughter filled the otherwise quiet cabin and created an easy atmosphere that fostered connection and understanding. The meager breakfast of bread and butter transformed into a feast filled with chatter and joy. After they finished eating, Silas offered to help Eliza with chores around the cabin. As they worked together picking weeds from her small garden patch, he shared tales of young colts he had raised and the challenges of training them. Eliza listened intently, captivated not just by his stories but by the way he made even hard work seem delightful. Throughout the day, Silas remained present, not just as a source of help, but also as a friend who offered emotional support without asking for anything in return. With each passing moment together, Eliza felt her spirit lifting just a little more. In Silas's presence, the loneliness that had once enveloped her began to dissolve, replaced by companionship and understanding she desperately needed. As evening approached, they shared laughter under the horizon painted in sunset hues, a promise of brighter days still ahead. And in those moments, both Eliza and Silas realized that perhaps they were meant to find one another on this journey through life's trials. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting a warm golden glow across the sky, Silas decided it was time for another shared meal with Eliza and her boys. They had been working hard all day, tending to the small garden and tidying up the cabin. He wanted to create a moment of comfort and connection, something they could look forward to after a long day. Silas returned to his modest ranch where he gathered what little he had. He cooked a simple meal of beans over an open fire, letting their earthy aroma fill the air. With a jug of fresh spring water tucked under his arm, he made his way back to Eliza's cabin, eager to share this humble feast with her family. When he arrived, he found Eliza sitting on the porch, tired but smiling as she watched Ben and Tommy play a makeshift game of tag in the yard. The sight warmed his heart. It was moments like these that made all the struggles worthwhile. "Evening, Eliza," he called out cheerfully as he approached. The boys looked up with excitement at the sight of him. "Hey, Silas. What do you have for us today?" Ben asked, bouncing on his feet. "Just a little something I whipped up," Silas said with a grin, setting down his sack on the porch. "I thought we could enjoy some beans and water together. It's not fancy, but it's good." Eliza felt touched by this gesture. "That sounds wonderful," she said warmly. She couldn't help but feel grateful for Silas's kindness. It was more than just food. He brought joy into their lives. As they gathered around the table outside, Silas served each dish with care, placing generous portions in front of everyone. The boys dug in eagerly, loving every bite that Silas had prepared. "These beans are amazing," Tommy exclaimed between mouthfuls. Silas chuckled at their enthusiasm. Watching them enjoy the meal brought him immense satisfaction. While they ate, Silas shared stories from the ranch, tales of mischievous animals and unexpected challenges he had faced while working alone. The laughter that erupted from Eliza and the boys created a warm atmosphere that enveloped them like a cozy blanket. In those moments, both Silas and Eliza realized how much joy came from sharing simple things together. After they finished eating, Silas poured everyone a glass of fresh spring water from his jug, raising his cup in a mock toast. "To friendship and good food," he declared with a playful wink. They all laughed and clinked their glasses together, feeling closer than ever. As twilight settled around them and stars began to twinkle in the night sky, Eliza felt a sense of peace wash over her. This small meal, though meager, had fostered connections that felt rich and fulfilling. It was in these simple moments where love began to weave itself into their lives again, a promise of brighter days ahead. In sharing not just food but laughter and understanding, Silas became an essential part of their journey toward healing together. As days turned into weeks, Silas became a constant presence in Eliza and her boys' lives. His visits transformed from occasional help to a routine that the family eagerly anticipated. Each day, he would arrive with a cheerful smile, ready to teach Ben and Tommy about ranch life and share stories that filled their hearts with laughter. One sunny afternoon, Silas decided it was time for the boys to learn how to care for the animals. "Are you ready for an adventure?" he asked, his eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. The boys jumped up and down, nodding excitedly as they followed him to the barn. Inside, Silas introduced them to the ranch's animals, starting with the gentle horses. "This here is Daisy," he said, stroking a mare's mane as she nuzzled his hand affectionately. "She's one of the best horses on the ranch. Want to help me brush her?" Ben and Tommy wasted no time getting involved. They took turns brushing Daisy's coat, giggling at her playful nudges. Silas patiently demonstrated how to speak kindly to animals, explaining why it was important to build trust with them. "Just like with people," he said, "animals respond to kindness." As they worked, Silas shared tales of his own childhood on a ranch, recounting humorous mishaps involving stubborn cows and runaway chickens. The boys listened wide-eyed, hanging on every word as their laughter echoed in the barn. Eliza watched from a distance, feeling a warmth spread through her heart. It was a joy she hadn't felt in ages. After spending time with the horses, Silas led them to feed the chickens. "You have to be gentle," he instructed as they scattered grain across the ground. Soon enough, they were surrounded by clucking hens pecking eagerly at their feet. "It's like a little party," Tommy shouted, laughing as a chicken fluffed its feathers right next to him. With every lesson Silas offered, he instilled a sense of confidence in the boys, allowing them to take ownership of tasks while developing their skills and understanding of ranch life. They learned how to mend fences and plant seeds in the garden alongside Eliza, who felt grateful for Silas's guidance as it lightened her own load. As evenings approached, Silas often joined them for dinner, bringing stories from the ranch that made them all laugh until their bellies hurt. During one particularly memorable evening, he recounted a tale about a mischievous goat that had stolen his hat right off his head. Eliza couldn't help but join in on their laughter. The sound filled their home with an air of warmth and camaraderie. Through these moments of shared work and joy, Silas not only became a mentor but also a beloved friend to Eliza's boys. Their bond grew stronger each day as they created lasting memories together, memories that filled the void left by loss and rejection. In learning about ranch life from Silas, Ben and Tommy were not just growing closer to him, they were also finding joy again in their own lives after enduring so much heartache. Eliza began to feel lighter too. She saw how Silas brought happiness into her boys' lives while reminding her that there can be light even after dark times. With each passing day spent together, she understood that this unexpected friendship was stitching together new beginnings for them all. As the weeks rolled on, Eliza began to recognize a subtle shift within herself. Where once there had been a heavy cloud of sorrow, a flicker of warmth was taking its place, largely due to the kindness Silas had shown her and her boys. She found herself looking forward to his visits, not just for the help he provided, but for the companionship that made her feel less alone. One afternoon, after a long day of tending to their garden and animals, Eliza sat on the porch, watching Ben and Tommy play a spirited game of tag in the yard. The sounds of their laughter filled the air with joy, lifting her spirits further. Silas had joined them earlier, teaching the boys how to identify different plants and even helping them create little markers for what they had planted. His patience and enthusiasm were infectious, igniting a spark in her children that warmed her heart. Eliza sighed contentedly as she took in the scene before her. For the first time since her husband's passing, she allowed herself to remember the good moments they shared as a family without feeling the sharp sting of grief. Silas's gentle nature reminded her of what love looked like, even in difficult circumstances. It wasn't about grand gestures, but rather the simple acts of kindness that filled daily life with hope. After dinner one evening, Silas settled down on the porch steps beside Eliza, watching the stars appear in the night sky. "You know," he said thoughtfully, "life isn't always easy. We all have our struggles." He turned toward her, his expression sincere. "But sometimes it's in those tough times that we find unexpected joys." Eliza nodded slowly, absorbing his words. She felt an unspoken connection growing between them, something tender yet fragile. Here was someone who understood her pain and also brought light into her life without judgment. "Ever since you came here," she admitted softly, "I felt something change inside me. I'm starting to heal." Her voice broke slightly as she spoke openly about her feelings, something she hadn't done in months. Silas smiled gently. "Healing takes time, Eliza. Just remember that it's okay to let people in." His words resonated deeply with her. They reminded her that she didn't have to carry her burden alone. As days turned into evenings filled with warmth and laughter, Eliza sensed her walls melting away bit by bit. She found herself laughing more freely with Silas and enjoying the small victories they experienced as a family, like when Ben finally managed to plant seeds in a straight line or when Tommy bravely rode Daisy for the first time under Silas's watchful eye. Eliza often caught herself stealing glances at Silas when he least expected it, noticing how his genuine smile lit up his face when he interacted with her boys. Those fleeting moments filled her heart with something she hadn't dared to feel for so long: hope. In the quiet corners of her mind, Eliza began imagining a future where love could blossom again, a future where laughter echoed through their home without shadows lingering over it. With Silas at their side, she recognized that new beginnings were not only possible but already unfolding before them. She held onto this realization tightly, embracing the light he had brought into their lives during such dark times. As the days turned into weeks, the bond between Silas and Eliza continued to grow, forging a connection that was both nurturing and profound. Their interactions were filled with laughter, support, and an unspoken understanding that flourished in the warmth of shared experiences. Each visit seemed to bring them closer together, creating a new family dynamic characterized by hope and shared dreams. On one particularly bright morning, Silas arrived with fresh fruits he had gathered from the orchard earlier that day. "I thought we could make a pie," he suggested, his eyes sparkling with excitement. Eliza's heart fluttered at his thoughtfulness. The idea of baking together felt like a small celebration of their blossoming relationship. Ben and Tommy's faces lit up at the mention of pie. "Can we help?" they exclaimed in unison, eager to get involved. With a smile, Silas agreed, and in no time, the kitchen was humming with activity. Flour dust floated in the air as they mixed ingredients, their laughter filling every corner. As they poured the fruit into the crust and rolled out dough together, Eliza stole a glance at Silas. He was showing the boys how to crimp the edges of the pie crust with care, his fingers deftly working as he explained each step. In that moment, she realized how much she had come to rely on him, not just for assistance but for companionship and guidance. His presence provided her boys with a father figure they desperately needed after their own father's absence. After slipping the pie into the oven, they sat around the table waiting for it to bake. Silas began sharing stories from his childhood, tales about his own family and traditions surrounding food that made everyone feel connected. Hearing about his upbringing made Eliza reflect on her own past and what she wanted for her children moving forward. The more time they spent together, the more Eliza felt that this connection was paving the way for something beautiful, a fresh chapter in their lives where love could bloom even amid struggle. She often caught herself imagining how Silas might fit into their future when he wasn't around. Thoughts of family dinners filled with joy and laughter danced through her mind. When the pie was finally done baking, its delicious aroma wafted through the air. They gathered around to taste their creation, each bite bursting with sweetness and warmth. Laughter erupted once more as they recounted mistakes made during their cooking adventure. The flour fight that nearly turned into chaos made for a hilarious memory. In those moments spent together, cooking pies, sharing stories, and laughing, Eliza felt pieces of her heart mending. Acknowledging this newfound joy didn't erase her past pain, but rather added layers to her life filled with hope and possibility. As twilight approached, Silas helped clean up while Eliza watched her boys play outside under the expansive sky. In that peaceful moment, she realized how much he had changed their lives for the better, how they were no longer just surviving but beginning to live again. Eliza understood now that love could indeed blossom in tough times. It did not have to be grand or loud but could be found in small acts of kindness and shared moments of joy. Together with Silas by their side, she felt ready to embrace whatever new beginnings awaited them as a family united by hope. As the seasons changed, Eliza, Silas, and the boys faced new challenges that tested their growing bond. Life on the ranch often brought unpredictable hurdles, be it fierce storms, stubborn animals, or unexpected crop failures. But with each difficulty they encountered, the family's resilience thrived, teaching them invaluable lessons about support and friendship. One particularly stormy afternoon, dark clouds rolled in quickly and heavy rains began to fall. The wind howled as Eliza gathered her boys and made sure the windows were secured. Silas arrived just in time, his boots muddy from the rain but his spirit undampened. "Looks like we have a bit of weather to ride out," he said with a chuckle, trying to buoy the mood. "Can we help?" Tommy asked eagerly, wishing to feel useful. Silas smiled and led the boys outside to check on the animals in the barn. "We need to make sure they're safe and dry," he instructed. Together, they worked quickly to secure the gates, feed the animals, and bring extra straw for warmth in their stalls. Eliza watched from the barn door as Silas guided her boys with kindness and authority. She felt a surge of gratitude knowing they were learning valuable skills under his gentle mentorship. This teamwork amidst adversity emphasized what family truly meant to her, being there for each other when times were tough. Once the animals were cared for, they settled inside the cabin for hot cocoa, relieved that they had managed through the storm together. The rain pounded against the roof while they shared stories of other storms they had faced, Silas recalling a memorable flood that had washed away part of his childhood home. Laughter erupted around the kitchen table as he exaggerated his heroic attempts to rescue chickens during that time. "I would have paid good money to see that," Ben exclaimed between giggles as he sipped his cocoa. The camaraderie in that moment made Eliza's heart swell with warmth. These interactions were building not only memories but a strong foundation for their new family. With every challenge met with laughter and determination, Eliza found herself reflecting on how far they had come. The wounds of loss were still present but healing day by day through their collective journey. They were no longer just surviving, they were thriving together. One night after dinner, when a peaceful calm fell over the cabin, Eliza turned to Silas while the boys played nearby. "Thank you for everything you bring into our lives," she said earnestly. His presence had not only filled their home with shared experiences but also nurtured an environment where love could grow again. Silas met her gaze with warmth in his eyes. "I'm just doing what feels right," he replied simply. "You and your boys deserve joy." In those moments together, whether facing storms or sharing laughter, Eliza recognized that resilience comes not just from individual strength but from leaning on one another. Their friendship had transformed into something deeper. It was shaping a future filled with hope, dreams, and love entwined with the challenges life presented. Together they learned that true family goes beyond blood ties. It is built through compassion, shared experiences, and unwavering support in times of need. As they faced each obstacle ahead, Eliza understood that they would do so hand in hand, fortified by trust and affection, the very essence of what it meant to be family. As the seasons changed once more, a rejuvenating warmth spread through Eliza's heart. With Silas's steady presence and unwavering support, she began to see her life in a new light. Each day brought fresh laughter from her boys, brightened by Silas's infectious spirit, making her realize that she was not just surviving but truly living again. One sunlit morning, as they gathered for breakfast, Eliza noticed something different about how she felt. Hope had begun to blossom inside her. The table was filled with simple but beautiful food, including freshly baked bread Silas had helped the boys prepare the night before. As she watched Ben and Tommy happily devour their breakfast while chatting animatedly with Silas about plans for the day, a smile crept across Eliza's face. "Can we go on another adventure today?" Tommy asked eagerly, his eyes glimmering with excitement. Silas chuckled, "Absolutely. Today we'll explore the old oak grove. I know some fun games we can play there." Eliza's heart swelled as she listened to their plans. It wasn't just an outing, it was a reminder of the joy they had rediscovered together. As they left for the grove, the air filled with laughter and joy, the sounds of family echoing through the peaceful countryside. Later that afternoon, under the vast canopy of trees, Silas led them with playful stories and games that engaged both boys completely. They climbed and raced around while Eliza watched from a nearby bench, her soul filling with warmth as she took in the scene. For so long, grief had shrouded her heart, but now it felt as if the sunshine was breaking through those clouds, illuminating memories of both past loves and newfound connections. After a day of playful adventures in nature, they settled under the branches for a picnic dinner. Silas opened his sack to reveal an assortment of treats they'd prepared together: sandwiches, fruits from their garden, and sweet pastries left over from breakfast. "I feel like this is one of the best days ever," Ben declared between mouthfuls. Tommy nodded enthusiastically, his hands greasy from jelly. Eliza looked at Silas across the blanket. He caught her gaze and smiled softly. In that moment, she felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude for everything he'd brought into their lives: the laughter, companionship, and most importantly, hope. She realized he had become a part of her heart, a man who provided comfort during her darkest hours without even trying to fill shoes that belonged to another. In conversations shared under starlit skies, during evenings spent together on the porch or around warm campfires, Eliza began to open up about her past more frequently. With each piece of her story that she shared, Silas listened intently and gently encouraged her to embrace not only those difficult memories but also the possibility of forming new ones. As time passed and growth enveloped them all, she cherished these moments spent creating a future filled with love rather than lingering pain. The realization blossomed within her that love could indeed flourish even after sorrow had taken root. It thrived in unexpected forms and at unexpected times. With every laugh shared and each obstacle overcome together, Eliza understood that their journey was only beginning. Together with Silas by their side, a kind-hearted ranch hand who unexpectedly walked into their lives, she felt ready to embrace whatever lay ahead with open arms and an open heart, welcoming change into a life once overshadowed by loss. Indeed, renewal accompanied them all as they made strides toward a bright future filled with promise and undeniable love.